Number 5. Street Fighter Alpha 2. Now there was a time when I could not stop playing this game. In my mind, this should have been Street Fighter 3, especially as the graphics and the gameplay with a huge Darkstalkers influence and fighting style had been more advanced than anything we had seen in the Street Fighter 2 series up until this point. My first go around with the Alpha outings came around 96, about a year after the release of Alpha 1 in the arcades. Gone was the old style that I'd been used to with Street Fighter 2, and here was this completely new do-over which looked like a manga movie come to life on the arcades. I was a little confused as to why this was called Alpha and not Street Fighter 3 until I read in the magazines that this was in fact a prequel to the Street Fighter 2 series, which roster-wise made a lot of sense as a number of the OG Alan were gone and replaced by characters, some of whom had appeared in other Capcom games and the very first Street Fighter. Alpha 1 had 13 characters, Alpha 2 has a total of 18 characters, including the previous from Alpha 1, including Dan and Bison and Akuma, now being immediately selectable. This game helped expand my knowledge of the wider Capcom universe, as I would play as Guy often, who was from the Final Fight series, as was newcomer Rolento. Ryu Superfan and Schoolgirl Sakura makes her debut, and she has over time become one of my favourite fighters in the Street Fighter universe. Guile clone Charlie is another one of my favourites, although I do wish they had altered his moveset slightly so he just wasn't a straight copy of his best friend. I split my time playing versus with the computer AI on a medium to hard level if my friends were not available to play, and completing the arcade mode with all the characters just to watch their end stories, with Charlie's being my favourite as he's straight shot and falls to his death. Supposedly, as we do see him alive in Street Fighter V. Of all the Street Fighter games I have played, this one would have to be one of my most played Street Fighter titles. The slick gameplay and the updated combos and super finishers kept me coming back for more, and sits at number 5 on my all-time favourite fighting games list. Number 4. Injustice 2. As much as I love the Marvel superheroes, I cannot exclude DC characters, especially as I'm a fan of Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman and the rest of the Justice League. From the producers of the Mortal Kombat reboot games that started on the PS3 and Xbox 360 comes this excellent fighter involving the DC characters in Injustice 2. The sequel to Injustice Gods Among Us. The game is based on the comic book series that sees Superman in a parallel universe become a tyrant after he was tricked into killing his wife Lois by the Joker, and in turn kills him in brutal fashion, and establishes a new world order, and some of the DC heroes have joined him whilst Batman has opposed his regime and leads a team of insurgents against him. The storyline mode in the game is thoroughly entertaining to watch as you play along completing the missions, and in my opinion this is way better than the Injustice animated movie that recently came out. The fighting style has been tweaked and improved upon from the first game, and has a cool feature of using source crystals to buy cosmetic adjustments for fighters, premier skins and shaders. As you continue to play with different fighters, you gain experience points which will increase their base stats and make them more powerful. As there is in total 38 characters, there is plenty to play for and will keep you coming back for hours on end as you attempt to unlock more stats and level points for the characters. There are also palette swaps on certain characters like Supergirl, Flash, which add a few more fighters in the game, a la Power Girl, the Reverse Flash. The game also includes Mortal Kombat alums Raiden and Sub-Zero, giving that Mortal Kombat presence to the game. Another reason why I personally love this game is the inclusion of the Ninja Turtles. Yes, they are under one character palette, but they can be swapped around and be any of the 4 turtles, each with their own distinct weapons and voices. And as Tournament Fighters is in my list of fighting games, having the turtles in the fighting arena only enhances my desire to see a Tournament Fighters 2. The voice actor cast for this is also top notch, with a number of the cast of Justice League reprising their roles for this game. I have clocked thousands of hours playing this game, and as it combines 2 of my favourite genres, comic heroes and fighting games, it's not hard to see why. Injustice 2, a fantastic sequel and a certified hit of a fighting game. Number 3. X-Men vs Street Fighter, a game that needs no introduction. The Marvel Mutant Supergroup vs Capcom's World Warriors, the Street Fighters. Now, unlike a lot of games on this list, I probably spent the least amount of time on this game on home consoles. Now, I do own a Raspberry Pi Retro console, so I finally got my hands on it after literally decades later playing it in the arcades. I first played the game back in the arcades in 1997. There was a local game shop near where I lived, and virtually every day after school I would go down there with my 50p coins and just game away. The action, look and feel of the game were up until that point nothing I had experienced in a fighting game. Excellent 2D sprites, colourful backgrounds, great background music, a fantastic roster, and 2-on-2 tag team fighting style. Enhanced air combos, double super finishing team up moves, a massive final boss in Apocalypse, and you had one heck of a game. Although they could have tweaked up the difficulty regarding Apocalypse if you ask me. Having already covered this game previously, do go check out my video on it. With so many tag teams to make from this roster, I just kept returning for more and more. The level of insanity and fast-paced action in this game is simply off the charts, and it laid the foundations of the Marvel vs. Capcom games that were to follow years later. But X-Men vs. Street Fighter will be the game that got the ball rolling, and it sits proudly as number 3. It will forever be one of my favourite fighting games. Number 2, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, New Age of Heroes. The only versus game that would put ahead of X-Men vs. Street Fighter is this classic gem. This was the culmination of over 6 years of fighting games, from X-Men Children of the Atom to Marvel Superheroes to X-Men vs. Street Fighter to Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter to Marvel vs. Capcom, featuring Capcom's finest with a select number coming straight from the Alpha series, all coated with their sprites and voices. It was the ultimate fighting game for me, bringing together the vast majority of the roster from the Marvel side along with Capcom fighters, and some new additions like Ruby Heart and Cable from the X-Men. X-Men and Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter were off the charts in terms of fast, furious action and combos. This game took it one step further by making it 3-on-3 tag style. What the previous Versus games and King of Fighters started, this game carried the fighting genre to even newer heights, having up to 6 players in the match, randomly tagging out at will and just causing havoc with all those specials and super moves and over-the-top combos. This was a fantastic fighting game. It has been listed as one of the greatest video games, not just fighting games, of all time. To me, this is the best of the Marvel vs. Capcom series and the entire Marvel Capcom fighting game series. What would have made this even better, in my opinion, is the change of the background music. The jazz is just an odd choice for me, and replace it with something more heavy metal or rock and roll that we were used to with previous games. Having individual character endings would have been great to have as well, but given the large roster, I suppose it's somewhat understandable why this didn't happen. Just a few nitpicks here and there, but that doesn't take away from the fact that this is an amazing game and I still play it to this very day. It is an all-time classic.
Marvel vs. Capcom 2, New Age of Heroes.
Now, just before I reveal the number 1 pick, here are a few honorable mentions that didn't quite make the cut, but these are still some very good choices for top fighting games, so here we are. And now, my number 1 fighting game of all time. Number 1, Ultra Street Fighter 4. And here it is, the number 1 fighting game on my list, Ultra Street Fighter 4. Now I have to stress, this is the DLC version of Super Street Fighter 4 that was released on the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. But as this is the final version of that game with all the extra downloadable characters included, I have put this on my list. I look at it as the culmination of the Street Fighter 4 series. When it was first released, it was a brand new modern update of the classic Street Fighter 2 with 2D sprites in a 3D environment. I had been hoping for years for a new Street Fighter game, and Street Fighter 4 got the ball rolling. And in true Capcom style, they released a newer version of the same game with newer characters and few new features, like being able to choose the fighters' ultra combos as they had more than just one set. This game also boasts the second largest roster in Street Fighter history with 44 characters, and everything that I loved about the Street Fighter 2 series was brought into this new age of gaming and amplified by 10. The game really excels on online mode, and you can see that there is a heavy emphasis on this when connected to PSN or Xbox Live. As well as the basic game options from the Street Fighter 4 version of this game, it features a few new additional online modes. Team Battle, which can allow up to 4 players per team to battle against another group. Endless Battle has the winner playing against a rotating group of up to 8 players. The focus attacks are a cool feature of the game, being able to absorb an attack whilst breaking through an opponent's defenses. I did mention the massive roster, and you are spot for choice on who to pick. The game got many positive reviews, and it's not hard to see why with all these great features on offer. Each character has their own stories and endings, so there's plenty to keep you coming back for more as you unlock many achievements and player scores. I could wax lyrical about what an amazing game this is, but I run out of superlatives, but it ranks as my #1 favourite fighting game of all time. And for me, it is miles better than Street Fighter 5, and I feel that I will more than likely return to this game after playing Street Fighter 6. Overall, Ultra Street Fighter 4 is the final stage in a fighting series that gave a rebirth to the fighting game genre and to the fighting in general, and sits at the top of my list, my favourite #1 fighting game of all time. And there it is, my top 15 fighting games of all time. Boy, it was a chore, but it was fun at the same time compiling this list, and there was a lot of memories brought on by going through this list. Some of these games I haven't played in ages, so it was fun revisiting them. I don't know, what do you reckon? Are any of your favourite fighting games on this list? What would you have put on your list? Tekken diehards are probably shocked at the inclusion of only one game on this list, but remember, it's my list and my experiences with fighting games. But you may have a different list, so please do let me know in the comments. I am XGAMER of Smokeface Entertainment, and this was my 15 fighting games of all time. Thank you very much for watching.